Today's video is brought to you by Card Kingdom. Head on over to cardkingdom.com to pre-order your Zendikar Rising cards today. Our opponents were ready for our nonsense this week. After having our main win condition exiled, eating board wipe after board wipe, and drowning in mana flood, we were barely hanging on. But being down doesn't mean you've lost, and if you play to your outs and believe in the heart of the cards, sometimes luck swings back in your favor. Hey friends, it's Tomer, and today I'm bringing out one of my own personal paper decks, Siona Captain of the Pyleas. I have a few personal budget decks that I keep around the $50 range and try to optimize to be as strong as possible within that budget. Out of these budget brews, Siona is the strongest. This is a cutthroat combo deck first and foremost, quickly and consistently generating infinite tokens to win the game. But what sets this deck apart from most budget combo lists is how well-rounded it is, able to dominate the board and win the game even if our combos get shut down. If you're interested in an in-depth guide to this deck, then check out the primer I wrote not too long ago, link in the video description below. But for now, I'll explain how the deck works before we jump into the gameplay. Our deck tech begins with our commander, Siona Captain of the Pyleas. Siona comes with two abilities. When Siona enters the battlefield, you can look at the top 7 cards of your library and put an aura from among them into your hand. This ability digs really deep and almost always finds a useful aura since our deck is loaded with them. Next is whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. This second ability is a powerful token engine in our deck when used fairly, but it's also the key to our broken infinite token combos. The first and most powerful combo in our deck combines Siona with Shielded by Fate. Shielded by Fate says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you may attach it to that creature. So when you attach Shield to any creature you control, Siona will create a creature token, which you then attach Shield to, which triggers Siona to make another creature token, creating an infinite loop of creature tokens. We then win on our next turn when we attack with our infinite army, or speed up our victory by adding a third card like Altar of Dementia for infinite mill. Our backup combo is Siona plus Reins of the Vinesteed plus a sack outlet like Blasting Station. When the creature Reins of the Vinesteed is attached to dies, you may return Reins to the battlefield attached to a creature that shares a creature type with that creature. So if we attach Reins to either a human or soldier creature, like one of Siona's tokens for example, Siona will trigger and make a human soldier token. Then we sacrifice the enchanted creature to Blasting Station, dealing 1 damage to an opponent. Reins then comes back attached to the newly created token made by Siona, which triggers Siona again to create a new token, which untaps the station. We repeat this for infinite damage. Since our combos are auras, the rest of our deck is filled out as a powerful Enchantress deck with a heavy aura sub-theme. We have Enchantress focused ramp, card draw, removal, recursion, tutors, and token generators that double as backup win conditions in case our combo plan doesn't pan out. These powerful synergies make our deck super well rounded, able to win fast or play for a long game. So now with our quick deck tech out of the way, let's hop into the game. We're pitted against returning opponent Old Wolf 30 Khan, who I will call Wolf, playing Zirda the Dawnwaker as their commander. Zirda makes activated abilities cheaper, and the most powerful activated ability cards in Boros are usually artifacts, so I expect some sort of artifact deck from Wolf, possibly an equipment deck. Regardless of what style of deck Zirda helms, games usually end when they drop either Basalt or Grim Monolith, generating infinite mana with their commander and using that mana to fuel a game-winning spell. So I need to be mindful of that and get rid of Zirda if I can. Our next opponent is R Soul Zed, who I will call Soul, playing Avacyn Angel of Hope. In my experience, Avacyn decks rely on ramping heavily to cast their commander, and once their entire board is indestructible, they follow up with back-breaking board wipes like Hour of Revelation and Armageddon. A deck centered around board wipes is a scary strategy to face, but since Avacyn costs a whopping 8 mana and we have multiple answers to her once she does hit the battlefield, I'm feeling confident that we'll have outs to this one. Our final opponent is returning viewer Ankylosaur, who I will call Ank, running Rona, Disciple of Gix. This is a commander that I have never played against, so I'm not quite sure what to expect, but my initial prediction is that it's a historic control deck that locks down the table through constant removal spells and uses Rona to generate card advantage. I expect Rona to kill a lot of my creatures, but thankfully Dimir shouldn't have too many answers to my enchantments. That said, I expect this table to be very tough for my combo deck, as both Zirda and Avacyn will undoubtedly be packing answers for my enchantments, and Rona will deal with my creatures, making it very difficult to combo off. After mulling away a hand with no lands, I keep a solid hand with some early ramp and interaction. All we need now is a tutor to find our Shielded by Faith combo and we're golden. Ink wins the die roll and goes first. Everyone's first turn seems unimpressive until Sol drops a turn 1 bomb with Serra Ascendant, a mighty 6/6 with both flying and lifelink. This is a scary threat, but at least we have an answer to it in hand with Kendra's transformation if necessary. Ink plays an island and ramps with Arcane Signet. I match them by playing a Plains and ramping with Herald of the Pantheon. Wolf plays a mountain but unfortunately can't match our ramp. Sol plays a Marsh Flats and cracks it for a Plains, hits Ink for 6 with Serra Ascendant, then casts Howling Mine to draw everyone cards. Some mono white decks take whatever card draw they can get. Ink plays an island and casts Diabolic Tutor, tutoring for some mystery card. After debating for a while on what to do on our turn, I eventually decide to cast One with Nature on Herald of the Pantheon and attack Sol for 2, ramping out a forest. Then post-combat, I play Selesnya Sanctuary and return a forest to hand. I decide to keep Seal of Cleansing and Felidar Umbra in hand, though I probably should have just cast one of them. Wolf casts Ichor Wellspring, drawing a card, but unfortunately doesn't find a third land even with all that extra card draw. Sol plays a Plains and casts Land Tax and Mana Vault. Things are looking good for them and they're well on track to cast a quick Avacyn at this point. Then they swing with the Ascendant at Ink for 6. I assume they've identified Ink as the biggest threat to their deck strategy, and they're hoping to take Ink out first. Ink plays an island, casts Emery, Lurker of the Loch, milling Basalt Monolith into the graveyard, then casts Rona, Disciple of Gix, exiling the Monolith. On my turn, I swing Herald at Sol for 2, ramping out another forest. Then I play a Plains and cast Siona, Captain of the Pyleus, hoping to set up our infinite combo on our next turn. Siona finds a fertile ground, which we take and cast. Then we enchant Siona with the Felidar Umbra, making a token and cast Seal of Cleansing. I plan to use the seal to either remove Sol's Mana Vault or Ink's Arcane Signet, as removing their mana increases the likelihood that we don't get wiped here. Wolf finds a third land, a Plains, and passes. They could have at least cast their commander, but they didn't, so maybe they're leaving up mana for an answer this turn, or they're expecting a board wipe. On Sol's turn, I decide to pull the trigger on my Seal of Cleansing, blowing up their Mana Vault. I really don't want a board wipe this turn, and I expect Sol to have some juicy ones in hand. Sol then plays a land, casts Arcane Signet, and casts Norn's Annex, which actually prevents us from killing them with infinite creatures, since we can't afford to pay the Phyrexian mana for all our attacking creatures. This random card is the perfect answer to our next turn. Then Sol hits us with Ascended for 6. Ink plays a Buried Ruin, casts Basalt Monolith, then casts Saheeli's Artistry, copying Serra Ascendant and Norn's Annex, correctly identifying the threat of our next turn as well. With two opponents now hiding behind Pillow Forts, next turn's combo is looking a lot less threatening. On our turn, I debate whether or not I should still go for the combo, and quickly determine that we aren't cowards, so we go for it anyway. We cast Aura Touched Mage, which fetches Shielded by Faith and attaches to it, and we're about to start the infinite creature combo when Wolf stops us with a generous gift, destroying our enchantment. I probably should have expected that with their untapped mana. This isn't a huge setback. Our deck has multiple ways of getting Shielded by Faith back out of our graveyard. So we just attack Wolf and Sol, ramp out another forest, then transform Ink's Ascendant into an elk with Kendra's transformation, and cast Transcendent Envoy. Wolf casts Trash for Treasure, sacrificing Ichor Wellspring and drawing a card to cheat Bosch Iron Golem from the graveyard straight into play. They still managed to miss a 4th land though, clearly a disciple of Krim's deck building philosophy. Sol fetches 3 planes with land tax, plays a planes, hits us for 6 with Ascendant, and passes. Ink plays Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths, and has me split the pile for them, putting the mere Battlesphere and Island into their hand. Then they play an island and cast Ashiok Dream Render, activating Ashiok to exile each opponent's graveyards. This is very bad for us. Not only is our main combo, Shielded by Faith, now gone from the game, but also Ashiok is preventing us from tutoring up any answers. Now we really need to top deck some action like card draw or removal to salvage this situation. On our turn, I swing with the Mage and Elephant at Ashiok, which are blocked by Atris and the Ascendant, and I hit Sol with Siona and Herald. Then I cast Sigil of the Empty Throne and Market Festival, making an Angel token, and cast Hero of Iroas. Even with our main combo exiled, Sigil of the Empty Throne can easily win us the game with an army of angels. We just need to find some card draw and cast some more enchantments and we'll be fine. Wolf plays a Plains and kills Ashiok with Bosch, clearly not a fan of the graveyard hate. Then Wolf casts Ready Scrap Savant, discarding Metalwork Colossus and Clock of Omens. Sol's land tax triggers, getting 3 more planes, and then kills Ready with Ascendant. Then Sol casts Mana Crypt and Avacyn, making their board indestructible and ready to start board wiping next turn. Unfortunately for both us and Sol, Ink has an answer to our shenanigans and casts All Is Dust, obliterating our boards. We lose everything to that wipe and now things are looking grim. Then Ink follows up with Tormod's Crypt, threatening to exile our graveyard if we top deck any of our enchantment recursion, making things even worse. The lands that we keep drawing aren't helping either, but we play out our final cards in a desperate gamble to get back into the game. We cast Hilliard's Pilgrim, fetching Snake Umbra, then cast Dreampod Druid, and enchant it with the Umbra. Hopefully this is enough to start rebuilding our board and draw some cards to claw back into this game, because we've got nothing left. Wolf plays a Command Tower, casts Zerda, and smacks us with Bosch. Sol plays a land, casts Worn Power Stone and Prismatic Lens, and finishes with Austere Command, destroying all enchantments and creatures with converted mana cost 3 or less, erasing our board yet again. With our combo exiled, nothing but lands on the battlefield and in hand, we are in a horrible spot. But we're not out yet, so we resolve to soldier on. Ink starts rebuilding their board, casting Contraband Kingpin and Ethereum Sculptor. I cast Verduran Enchantress, our first piece of card draw, and cast Steel Primordium to draw a card. Then I cast Siona, finding a Hyena Umbra, though unfortunately I don't have the mana to cast it this turn. Wolf plays a Plains and casts Foundry Inspector, then casts Krark Clan Ironworks, a card that heavily signals incoming combos, then smacks Sol with Bosch. Our Seal of Primordium is a good rattlesnake to keep the big artifact creature away. Sol plays a Plains and recasts Avacyn, but is denied with a counterspell from Ink, then casts Ghostly Prison. Ink plays a Swamp, recasts Rona, exiling and recasting Emery, Lurker of the Loch, then casts Solemn Simulacrum. It's clear at this point that Ink is taking over the game and will need to find some way to deal with them soon or he'll be locked out of this game. We continue to draw all the lands. I cast Hyena Umbra and Sixth Sense on Siona and swing at Sol to draw another card. Among all the lands we draw is one non-land, Reigns of the Vine Steed, the key to our backup combo. I really don't want to cast Reigns before I find a sack outlet and risk getting it exiled by Ink as well, but we desperately need some action, so I risk it and cast it on Siona to draw another card, drawing and casting Song of Freyalise. Then I play a land, confident in our ability to at least make all of our land drops for the rest of the game. Wolf plays a Mountain, casts Signet, and passes, definitely holding up some instant speed shenanigans. Sol plays Homeward Path, recasts Avacyn, then casts Hour of Revelation. We really can't catch a break this game. Ink responds by popping Tormod's Crypt to exile Sol's graveyard, then Wolf responds by sacrificing their artifacts to the Ironworks and floating a bunch of mana. Then after Revelation resolves, Wolf flashes in Shimmermere, Pariah's Shield, and Darksteel Plate, finally ready for future board wipes. Ankh plays an island and casts Mists of Stagnation. Now the constant graveyard exiling makes sense. Ankh was looking to stacks out their opponents with this card. Then Ankh casts Tezzeret Artifice Master and +1s it to make a Thopter token. On our turn, we unfortunately don't find another land, but I suppose this is a little bit better. We cast Crystal Chimes and immediately pop it, getting all enchantments in our graveyard back to our hand and getting us back into this game. We then cast Transcendent Envoy, Fertile Ground, turn Avacyn into an Elk, Wild Growth, load up Siona with Feldar Umbra, 6th Sense, and 1 with Nature, and swing at Ankh, ramping another Forest. I have no idea if any of this turn was correctly done. I was just really happy to be back in this game. Wolf casts Commune with Lava for X=5 at our end step. Then on their turn, they cast Monastery Mentor to start building a token army. Then they cast Fire Diamond and pass. Soul isn't out of answers yet. They cast Admonition Angel, play a Windswept Heath, triggering its landfall and exiling Mist of Stagnation, then cracks the Heath for a Plains and exiling Kenra's Transformation, unelking the Avacyn. Then they cast Hushwing Gryff and swing in with Avacyn at Tezzeret, which gets chump blocked by a Thopter. Ankh starts rebuilding their defenses on their turn, plus wanting Tezzeret to make a Thopter, cast Riddlesmith, Mindstone, steal Hellkite, and finishes off with Baleful Strix. On my turn, we draw into the final piece of our combo, Blasting Station. Friends, we got there. I immediately cast Reigns of the Vinesteed, enchanting a human soldier token, and cast Blasting Station, sacrificing the enchanted creature and pinging Soul for 1 with the station. Vinesteed triggers, returning to the battlefield attached to another token, triggering Siona again, ready to loop the combo for infinite damage until I realized that I made a terrible mistake. Hushwing Gryff is preventing Blasting Station from untapping. This stops my combo temporarily, but thankfully we have the answer in hand. All I have to do is cast Open the Armory to find Faith Unbroken, exiling the Hushwing Gryff and resuming my combo. I just need to resolve these triggers, tutor up my answer, and resume the combo. But unfortunately, well, Magic Online breaks. The client doesn't let us put the triggered abilities on the stack or take any actions, so we lose to inactivity. Despite a disappointing buggy finish, this was one epic game. Most people I face with this Siona deck just aren't ready for it and get steamrolled in the first few turns as I assemble my combo unopposed, but this table was definitely prepared for my nonsense, and it ended up being a grueling match. This roller coaster of a game saw me beaten and knocked down with my main combo exiled, my board wiped multiple times, and heavy land flood keeping me from recovering. But eventually we bounced right back and were even about to win the game before Magic Online bugged out. As far as deck changes, I'm not really sure. I've played this $50 list a good bunch and I'm pretty happy with the card choices with the budget restriction. There's plenty of ways to upgrade the deck however, such as better recursion with Retether, or more card draw with Argothian Enchantress, so if you're interested in a more expensive version of this deck, check out the primer linked in the video description below. You can also hop by my stream every Wednesday at 6 PM Eastern Time and watch these games live or even show up as a player in them. So until next time friends, see ya! Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking the like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, make sure to click the subscribe button. And if you want to watch similar videos, click on the links appearing on screen right now.